right, so this week we are revisiting pricing, but in kind of a different way. So, Donte, why don't you explain a little bit why we're going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about?
So I keep getting this question on my social media, mostly my Instagram, because I'm most active there, which I'm going to start moving to Twitter, because Instagram, anyway. But I keep getting this question of like, hey, how do you price your pots? Can you help me price my pots? I've gotten maybe about 5 this week of people who are newer to pottery and they want to start selling their work.
Yeah.
And one person in specific is like, can I pick your brain about selling your pots? And I engaged with him, but he was like, no, I want to know the exact number.
Yeah.
Like of how you price your pots.
Right, yeah, because you sent him the episodes that we've done previously. So we've done 2 episodes on pricing.
Yes.
One was like one of our first 10 episodes.
Right.
And the other one was kind of... I think we called it like Pricing 2.0, which was kind of an update, an addendum to that.
Right.
But you were essentially covering more information because people continue to ask you.
People continue to ask me.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give you like the nitty gritty right now, and hopefully this can move into a further conversation.
Yeah.
Of like why I think this way and what like the ethical backing behind what I personally think.
Yes.
I guess I can't really call it ethical backing because it's not an overarching.
Well, it's your decision making behind like your pricing. So okay, so we're essentially going to be like going into like kind of more quickly like the nitty gritty details of how we price our work and like specific numbers.
Yes.
And then going into more broadly the conversation of why we price our work the way we do and kind of like we were taking notes beforehand because we actually took notes beforehand this time. Kind of like the difference between like price gouging versus like paying for an artist's labor and some of the like philosophical ideas behind that.
Hopefully we can get to the larger conversation today of like the difference in between paying for skilled labor versus price gouging. And I do think there's a scale of that. And I think there's good examples of both of them on either ends, but a further conversation.
I know, because we're gonna. I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts, especially after Nsika. Especially after Nsika, I have so many thoughts.
We should cap with that. We should like at the end of this episode be like, Nsika kind of opened me up a little bit. Like I'm a little bit angry at myself. Anyway, that's a further conversation.
Yeah.
But like I do want to make this episode today about the larger conversation, or at least kind of define the scale in between price gouging and paying a respectful price for an artist's work and skilled labor.
Okay.
And the spot in between is where it kind of gets fussy. Lindsey and I kind of like... Yeah. That's where we fuss a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And hopefully our perspectives kind of give you some food for thought. So let me start off by firstly saying that I will probably, for the foreseeable future, not charge more than like $62 or $63 per mug right now.
Is that including shipping?
That is including shipping.
Okay.
For my mugs. The reason for that being, is the way I see it, is it takes about $12 to $13 for USPS priority shipping from where I am anywhere in America or the other places they allow me to go to, okay? If you want something specialty order for me, I charge you more, but you gotta contact me.
Right.
But as a baseline, the box that it takes to ship a mug of my size... Which is the small box. The USPS priority mail small box. It's like 6x6x6. It's a very small box.
Okay, because that's a different small box than like
there's a bunch of them. So
there's a bunch of different small size.
There's a bunch of different medium sized boxes too.
But
priority mail USPS flat rate shipping usually charges you for the small versions of it, sometimes the medium too, in between like $10 and $13.
It's more expensive these days, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
They just went up like 90 cents on me.
So the USPS flat rate medium box that I use, which is like 11 by 9 by 7, I think.
You use the true medium one.
Yeah.
Like the actual medium size
Yeah,
one.
the actual medium size box. And that fits one of my larger mugs or 2 of my smaller like teacups.
Yes.
And that is, if I go through the USPS website, that's I think $16.25.
Yeah, that's about it.
And if I use Etsy, because Etsy as like a company, they get like bulk discounts for USPS shipping.
Yeah.
So if I use that same box, but it's an order through Etsy, it's I think $15.75.
So a little side note here, what I've started to do is I've started to get unmarked boxes that I can put my own stamp on. They have an option called Parcel Select. And Parcel Select isn't priority shipping, but they charge you like $1 or so less for getting your own boxes. They don't supply you with boxes.
Yeah.
But you can choose any size you want up to like 10 by 10 by 10.
Oh, okay.
So I have a box that's 8 by 8 by 8.
Yeah.
So if I have a set of bowls, it fits in there. I had to stop using the medium boxes because the medium boxes are longer than they are tall.
Right.
By like an inch to an inch and a half.
Yeah.
And they cost a little bit more. So a mug fits perfectly. I found that with the medium boxes, I have to lay my mugs down in order for me to ship 1 or 2 of them in the medium boxes.
Right.
But for the small boxes with a little bit more height, I stand them up and they never break now. They just straight up don't break now.
Okay.
Because they're suspended straight up, so if you bang them around, they're fine. But with the flat ones, there's less space in between the top and bottom.
Yeah.
So if they drop them and they smack...
I use the medium boxes and I lay mine down and I haven't had a piece break in a long time.
I've had like 2 in my whole life, maybe 3.
Okay.
And after the second one, I was like, I gotta try a different size. I need something taller so I can stand them up. Because clearly my pots are stronger on the top and bottom than they are on the side. And that's why I chose that. And then I was like, it's cheaper too. And then I was like, well, done. And then I found Parcel Select. And I was like, okay, done.
Yeah.
But to go back to the pricing conversation.
Wait, actually, sorry, quick little note on that, since I think shipping, because shipping, I think, is such a huge part of pricing.
Yes.
Small little side benefit, for the USPS priority mail boxes, they are, just for our listeners and viewers,
yes.
They're free to order, so you don't actually pay, you don't pay for the boxes until you buy the shipping label.
Yeah, so they give you the boxes for free.
Yes.
Yes.
However, if you order through, like, some companies will do like a create your own size box. You can have a custom order size. So like Eco Enclosed, the company that I use for most of my other shipping things, you can actually order from them a specific size box. So if so if you want to, and again, it's a balance because you still want to have enough room around your piece to like support the mug so it doesn't break.
You want it suspended in whatever you...
Yes. Yeah. But if you feel like you're using a lot of filler material for your particular size of mugs, you can always custom order a particular size box from a company, but then the pricing's different there. But anyway, that's just a little side
Eco Enclosed great, by the way.
I love Eco
Uline was kind of the top for a bit, and then I kind of stopped using Uline.
Yeah, because Uline has some really serious ethical issues. Like they've supported a lot of really conservative candidates. They've said some really racist comments, and I'm like, as soon as I found that out, I'm like, okay, let's make a switch.
Yeah, it's kind of like Nike. Like I used to love Nikes, and then I started to like look at their history of their unethical practices, and I was like, I don't know if the J's are worth it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ethical issues there, and I'll see it if I remember to. I will put the sauce for the Uline thing in the notes so that people can. Now it's like I have receipts.
Researched it. Yeah.
Anyway, so back to the overall pricing conversation.
Right. Sorry. So it's like my mugs would never go above $62 or $63 because it costs $13 for shipping. So my brain at max for like America with that specific box for a mug. So my brain goes, cool, I'm making $50 off of this one mug. But then I usually take about $10 or so off of each mug because I'm essentially paying myself for time, shipping, packaging, like I don't have a social media manager. It's me.
Right.
Like we don't have social media managers. I don't have an editor. Us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just the $10. And then my brain goes, okay, the other $40 of that is my skill, my labor, the 10, 20, whatever, how many years you've been doing it, time it takes to learn that skill. And so I'm essentially paying myself $40 for all that, maybe 20, and then the 30, however you want to slice it up, really. But like the shipping itself is $10 to $13. And then it's like, and that's the height. That's like if my mug comes out a banger, that's $63.
Okay. And that's also just for clarification, because I think, like, one of the things we'll get into later is, like, okay, what kind of mug are you making?
Yes.
So when you say for your, like, top line mug, are you talking about, like, a cup with no, like, extra symbols on it? Because you do a lot of, like, silkscreen stuff.
No,
so
I mean,
talking, like, it's like a mug dipped in a single glaze.
A mug dipped in a handmade glaze that I made myself.
Right.
With a combination that's very specific to me, with a bit of carving work put into it, and the colors came out fantastic. Like, the colors came out, like, this mug is not going to come out like this for another year. Right. It is super rare to get this type of mug for me. $63. Like, that's rare for me.
Okay.
Because I put a lot of work into my stuff. But there's a certain point that I go, if you're charging for shipping, if you're taking shipping out of the equation, all my work, shipping, handling, and experience equates to $50 per mug.
Okay.
Right? So that's where mine is right there. Everything else goes toward the company and me. Everything else goes towards, like, that pays for clay, that pays for kiln maintenance, that pays for overhead if I have any, the electricity, the glaze materials, right? That pays for extra materials, that pays for the baby's diapers. That pays, you know, like, that pays for, like, stuff that has nothing to do with shipping.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
Because the shipping is its own thing. The rest of it, every time you buy a mug from me, and that's a top line mug. Yeah. That's like, oh, I'm not going to get this for a while. Yeah. That's usually my mugs are about $52, $53 each. And then you take those same numbers. So, you know, 12, 13 minus 50, and then it's $40, and then the rest of it. So it's like 20 for skilled labor, and then it's like 20 for the business. Okay. Right? And for me, like, I would say most of my mugs are around $60. Although some of the pieces that require more time, like for instance my like the shipwreck mugs that I did recently. Fantastic. Or like the cups that I love doing during Halloween, which are I call them my, like, you know, warlock or like witch cauldron mugs. So those have like a finger bone or a handle that looks like a giant, like, I've seen those. Bone. I remember those,
Yeah. So those I'll sell for like $75 because they take more time.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. Although honestly, like, I especially after talking to Tim C at Insika, I'm like, ooh, I honestly think I need to raise my prices more. Because I think, like, and again, like, it's hard because there's a lot of debate around, again, like, how much is for a mug, like, how much for the skilled labor, like, basically everything we're going to be talking about.
Right now we're talking about the price of shipping and skilled labor only.
Right.
But, like, there are other facets.
Yeah. And for me, like I think in general, like, I'm inclined to charge more than you because, like, I'm kind of like, I need to be able to continue to do this as a living.
Of course.
And, like, okay, I think my cheapest mug right now, if I'm remembering correctly, is my teacup cups that have a the RPG stats.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I like those too. So it's like a teacup about 4 inches tall. It has the symbol on it, but it's just iron oxide or an underglaze, and then one full dip in clear. Okay. So not even any colored glazes. I'm not using wax resist. It still has the stamp or the sprig put on it.
Right, but you made those stamps.
Oh yeah,
no, special order.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Like those are innately you.
Yeah, and that baseline is, I think. Oh god, it's so funny. I feel terrible that I'm actually spacing out on the prices because it's been a little bit since I've done an Etsy update.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
And I've been thinking so much about prices that anyway. But I think it's like $45. Okay. And that's including shipping.
My little avatar, so I have like a dungeon master teacup.
Right.
And I have like an avatar. I have like earth, fire, air, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Those have become standard on my website. They're sold out right now. There might be 4 left, but if you're looking for them. But those are like maybe $42 each for me.
Yeah.
But that is only because in my brain, again, I go, it's $12 for shipping. That's $12, so that's $30 per teacup.
Yeah.
I learned how to make the damn thing. That's $20, and the other 10 goes to like buy more clay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't have it broken down that specifically. What I tend more to think about is like, what is, like, I think about the baseline shape for a cup with a handle.
Yes.
And then I plus and minus from there. So if it has a stamp, that's going to be, you know, that's going to be more. If it has a stamp that I use a wax resist with, that's going to be more.
Because wax be costing money.
Because, and it's also, for me, it's mostly the time. Like, a big thing of wax, all things considered, isn't that expensive.
Yeah.
But it takes, it adds like a whole other, like, it adds another 5 minutes per mug to add the wax resist. Because I not only have to brush it on and be really careful about that, because if I don't, I have to refire the mug to get that wax off.
Yes.
But in addition, like when you dip the mug in glaze, you still have to wipe off because the wax resist.
There's still work to be done.
The glaze, you still have to wipe the glaze off the wax resist. So it adds more time. So for me, I tend to I increase or decrease the price primarily based on the amount of time that the cup takes. So
adds to the price.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I would also like to say in your defense that wax resist, I've learned over the years, is not like I put it on and I'm done kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, no.
You have to let it sit for 1 or 2 days and dry out, because wax resist, and I'm only saying this because there's not a lot of people who know this. Wax resist has to be held in suspension by water, and it's mixed up with water. That's the carrier to it. So technically, if you put your mug with wax resist and then you glaze it and you put it in the kiln, the water turns into steam and it lowers the gravity and it lowers everything in your kiln. It's dumb. Try it one day. Like,
you know, I I don't leave it out for a couple days. I'll leave it out for like maybe 3 hours. Basically, when it doesn't look wet anymore, that's when I dip the whole thing in glaze.
I let it cure, essentially, because I did it one time. Like, I rushed an entire kiln load, and I waxed everything, and then I glazed everything, and within that 2-hour span, I put everything in the kiln, and I freaked out because my kiln was steaming. Like, steam was coming out of it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, what am I doing? I talked to another potter, and he goes, yeah, pure wax would be hard, dude. Like, wax is water. Like, wax just is water and wax.
Yeah.
He goes, you just put a bunch of water in your kiln, and now the steam is coming out because the wax just burns off at, like, X amount of degrees.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and he goes, it's probably throwing off your gravity because, you know, gravity for glaze is essentially, like, the water differential in between the minerals and the water.
Huh.
And I was like, oh, crap. And all my reds came out blue. All my reds came out, like, my Randy's red came out like Randy's blue.
Oh,
and I was
interesting.
like, crap.
Interesting.
So now when I do it, I let it sit for, like, a little bit. Sometimes I let it sit for, like, a week, and I notice my reds come out a little better. Oh, yeah, I'm cautious now.
Wow.
I'm real cautious now.
Yeah, I think maybe maybe the glazes I use are just a little bit more, like... resilient, because I know Randy's red can be kind of finicky, which is
Randy's
part of why I don't
finicky.
use it that much.
Yeah.
Because I have rushed glaze loads before. I mean, we're getting a little bit off topic here. But
we'll get
essentially,
back on the horse,
we'll get back on the horse. But like, because I feel like it's important to specify like the time differences, because again, like if you're using a technique to make cups that takes like a week for something to like cure, like that's part of the process. That's part of the process, and it's gonna go into deciding like the price of your cup.
Yes.
So I want to like clarify that I don't take that amount of time, and I don't notice a difference in my glazes.
Yes.
But also we use different glazes, and like yours may be more or less receptive to like the differences in water concentration.
Yeah.
Oh, depending on how
my glaze is more sensitive.
Yeah.
My glaze is super sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm very like, this has to be at 1.4 specific gravity in order for it to work at its prime on this clay body.
Yeah.
In this space in the kiln.
Right.
For it to be prime.
Yes.
You know, like I look at my notes and anyway.
Yeah. So, okay, so do you feel like that has kind of covered the like specifics of...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like one other thing that I did want to add is like I usually think about increasing, like when I talk about like increasing or decreasing the price based on like my baseline mug. Like that baseline mug, I tend to think of being like $50.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if I just threw like a simple cup with a handle and then dipped it in one glaze, probably $50 including shipping.
I think for me it's like 40.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then to give you a sense of the price the price differences between. So my regular cups with a handle with a stamp on them, I sell for $55, and all these prices are including shipping. My Princess Mononoke mugs, I sell for $95 because they take a lot more time because the underglaze painting
is very exact.
Yeah. I have to also fire them a couple times to like to build up the layers of the oxide and stains.
Yeah.
And then like my Dragon Egg mugs go anywhere from like $175 to like $200.
Yes.
And honestly, I need to increase the amount of time because that baseline mug that is $50 takes maybe a half an hour to make.
Well, that makes sense. Your dragon mugs.
Yes. Well, I want to explain like the price difference. So baseline, my quote unquote baseline mug, you know, cup with a stamp on it, $55.
Okay, makes sense.
Takes 30 minutes.
Got it.
A cup that takes 4.5 hours to make, I only charge roughly 3 times that amount. So 50, 100, 150.
Okay.
Technically, that Dragon Egg mug to be at that price should be like take me only an hour and a half to make, and it takes me an hour and a half just to add the scales.
So I think the difference between you and I is that you go based off of the amount of time it took, because none of us are really talking about skill in this conversation, although that is a conversation that needs to be had.
Yes.
But we're both talking about like time and effort at the moment.
Yes.
I think the difference between you and I is that you go based on time and effort, and I go on rarity or how good the thing came out. So like if I put a lot of time and effort into a mug and it turned out unpleasurable or it turned out straight ass, I'm probably not going to show you that mug. Like I'm not going to charge you a lot for it. And if I can't get the system down to where it comes out amazing every time, then I'm going to undersell it. But if I get a mug that randomly comes out on my website, I call it perfected. So like I'll be like Randy's red and Lumos, Randy's red and Lumos, Randy's red and Lumos perfected. That's my symbol. It's usually like $5 more, and that's my way to go. This is the best it's probably gonna get.
Interesting.
Like this is the prime of how ever.
Yeah.
If you look on my website right now, you'll see pictures of like perfected. Like, oh, that's as good as it can get at the moment for his skill level.
Right.
Okay. Well, going forward with the conversation, because we weren't really talking about skill, I think that there is absolutely something to be said about pricing something for the amount of effort it took in order to make the thing. Not just time, not just rarity. More so like, oh, that's something that is not done to, like, and I hate to shit on it a lot, right? But like, I'm not paying top dollar for swirly mugs. I'm not. I learned how to make swirly mugs in my first year. It's pulling a cylinder very slowly, but it's basically a cylinder with a handle on it still. But people will like go crazy for spirals in their mugs, and I can't do it. But I see people charge like $90 for a swirly mug. And my brain goes, that's for someone who's not indoctrinated into clay culture. I understand how that can be special, and I get like, even my mom is super into like the rebirth symbols and the swirls and the yin yang symbols. So I get how that speaks to the artistry of like circular things and coming back around and the symbol of life. Like I get how the symbolism works into the mental state.
Right.
That being said, I still don't think it should be like double the price of my mugs because you put a swirl in it. Like, it doesn't offend me, but my brain goes, the word skill. I understand it takes time to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
But at a baseline, I feel like almost every potter knows how to do that. So just from my personal viewpoint, whenever I see when I do my swirly mugs and it's $63 max, and I see someone else's with just like a coat of white or a coat of pink on it, and it's a swirly mug, and it sells, I'm like, why'd you pay $90 for a swirly mug with one glaze on it? I'm over here developing glazes, and this person has like clear coat on a swirl, and you're paying for it.
Yeah.
And this is where I think it gets into the like, how much skill needs to be put into a product before you can charge X amount of dollars on whatever platform you choose for something that would be considered basic to us, but special to other people who don't usually see that. Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Carvings are more rare to me than swirlies.
Yeah. Let
me say that. Like in the clay world, if you see a carved mug, that to me is far more skillful and rare than a swirly mug.
Right.
It takes way more skill to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think if I were to, like, okay, what I'm about to say is kind of like, I have a hard time doing this for myself.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is kind of like what I am aiming for.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, I think to some degree, if people are still buying it, that's an okay price.
Okay.
Because like I remember, I believe it was John the Potter who was talking about, and I think this was in his book.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to John the Potter's book. I actually really enjoyed it, even for advanced potters.
True. Yeah. Sidebar.
Yeah.
He addresses things that most of the art world does not. Like if you ever go to art school, they talk about like, oh, the process and the feel of clay.
Man, I wish they talked about it like that. I
really want to get into your artwork.
For our dear listeners, I'm getting a bit of a show from
Reach
Donte.
into the void.
Oh my god.
And pull the shapes from your mind.
Okay.
Any way you can express thyself. And
right.
John is like one of the very few people who is like, look, you can do all that, but you gotta make money to do that.
Yeah, he's more, and he talks about that in his book. So anyway, little shout out to John.
Sorry for the YouTube watchers.
I know that was
striptease all over you.
That was glorious. So yeah, this is more evidence that Don, good lord, Donte needs an OnlyFans. Anyway, point being, John the Potter was talking about his process of increasing prices, and he started out with a price.
Yep.
All the pieces sold out.
Exactly.
Next time he increased the price, all the pieces sold out. He basically like continued to raise his prices until it kind of seemed like the purchasing was slowing down, and then it was like, okay, then he found like a medium.
Yeah.
But it was the same cup every time. So in my mind, like, I think...
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that.
I don't think you do, though.
I agree with it.
No.
Yeah.
I want to tell you.
I don't agree with it for myself.
Right. No, exactly.
I don't agree with it for myself.
Which drives me absolutely insane.
I don't agree with it for myself.
So the reason I want to point this out is because I think, like, you, again, like you say, like, yes, I agree with that, but then you don't actually do that with your own work.
Okay, well...
And on top of that, like...
Oh, you got me.
The reason I think that it's important is because, like, yes, I think, okay, ultimately we have to recognize that, like, the way economics works and the way that we value things is kind of doesn't really make sense because we're humans. I mean, we're humans and we don't really always operate in the most rational way.
It's not real.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's kind of like, okay, we're in this system and again, like this might be the little bit of the chip that's on my shoulder socially about like the way that artists are valued, but it's kind of like, you know what? Like, if I was paid hourly for the amount of work that I put into my business, I would have way more money than I do right now.
That's fair.
But I don't because I have to sell my work. So it's kind of like if you can make a swirly mug and people are buying it for $90, good on you, dude. Like to me, that's not a bad thing. That's like cool. You found your market.
Yeah.
You've developed your audience. You have people that are willing to buy that money. And sure, maybe it's not the most complicated technique in the world, but you've built a business around charging $90 for a swirly mug. I think that's great.
Hear me out.
Tell me.
I've gotten up my own ass recently.
Yes.
And I'll fully
I'm sorry, but
no.
I get up my own ass about things too, but tell me.
I'll fully admit that because like after I went, and I was going to save this for the last part, but after I went to Ensika, I started looking at my own work and being like, fucking pedestrian.
Well, I remember you talked about that on the last episode that we did, like talking about Ensika.
I don't, and anyway, I'll get to that point later. I just want to give you a little, but like I think there is something to say about rarity and price that the art world doesn't seem, especially the functional art world, like such as us, don't seem to come into aspect. Like,
what do you mean?
Like, the rarity of a swirly mug in our circle is very common, but to the outside world is like, wow, whoa, you know?
Yeah. So?
It's certain part of it bugs me where I'm like, I'm good.
Well, yeah, sure, but that means it just may not be your cup of tea.
But you're stop it!
I cannot stop.
But your dragon egg mug, like the one you just she pulled out a fantastic piece, by the way. It was
super
so
yeah.
You know the kid kind of peach pulled out the kill, and you're like.
I was literally like eeping. Anyway.
Yeah.
But
that, like I get why you would charge like $200 for that. Yeah. There's sculptural aspects to it. There's 3 different layers of glaze. The glaze came out very rare. Like that glaze almost never comes out that way.
Dude, but I mean like
I work with that glaze and it doesn't come out for me that way.
Yeah. It was anyway, I'll be posting it on my Instagram, so have a look. But it was Amico's saturation gold. But I mean admittedly like the thing is that maybe like a rare outcome.
Yeah.
So, but it's like I don't know.
I'm paying for precious moments. Like you know.
Yeah.
And the price goes up the more precious the moment. Like
No, I think I hear that. I hear that for you and your pricing, but I think where like broadening that out to the comparison that you made about like how common are swirly mugs versus like other kinds of things that are out there.
Right.
Like, I think eventually, if people eventually aren't interested in swirly mugs, then that's going to naturally kind of decline and interest will fade. But it's kind of...
And I'll be happy.
Sure, okay, you'll be happy.
I'll be satisfied.
But for the time being, it's like if that's a style that is popular... That's a source of income for people.
Right.
I think that's great. Like, I mean, like, I think you can think of the difference with, like, you know, folks, like when the whole bubble glaze technique first kind of became a thing. Let me say things. Let me say things. I know you're very upset.
In my heart.
You're very upset. That's not where your heart is.
It's me.
So like when that first came out, right? Like, you know, people. I mean, again, I actually. Okay, so I'm speaking off of conjecture here, so I don't have any receipts.
No, I was. You're good.
But like, you know, that was like oh wow, that's a really like new technique. People I think could charge more for that because it was a new technique. There was novelty to it.
Novelty.
The demand was higher because the rarity was higher, or the perceived rarity was higher.
Yeah, because
you know, because eventually it became like a more popular technique.
Yes.
It's not as new, you know, and you know, so, I don't know. So I guess like
it was a fad. It was definitely a fad.
Sure, yeah, but I mean...
It was like, oh, it's new, and then we were like, we just put soap and glaze and blue bubbles.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I think the thing that gets dismissed in those circumstances is that a new technique needs to go through that process for people to then build upon it. But it's an important step to getting to that next phase. Like when we saw, Oh my god, it's killing me that I'm forgetting his name right now. But anyway, there was a well-known ceramic artist on Instagram who used that bubble technique, but combined it with like 2 different techniques to give it a different kind of look. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, like in my mind, it's very easy to dismiss things that are popular and being like, oh yes, that's so pedestrian. Yes. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, to me that feels...
It's necessary.
Yeah, and it feels dismissive of the learning process and dismissive of the things that are interesting for people.
Yes.
Like the first time...
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I get
what you're saying in the fact that it's necessary for the growth process.
Yes.
To go through these phases that we would consider either fads or pedestrian or common.
But I don't think that we should be always classifying them as such. Because I think what often happens is that potters who are exploring those techniques...
Yeah, you don't want to discourage them.
Right. And I think talking about them...
I feel that.
Yeah, I think talking about them in that way...
Makes them not go to that avenue.
Yeah. Or it makes them feel like, oh, I shouldn't, or, you know, and it's kind of like, I think we should encourage anytime someone is interested in exploring a new topic, because also the other thing, too, is that learning. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a high horse right now.
You're fine.
But like,
it's a good horse.
Thank you.
My horse has one broken leg right now.
This one's just galloping right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, last point I'll make is that the ceramics learning process is not linear for everyone. Like I've never done the bubble technique. I've never made a swirly mug, right?
I hate it.
So actually, no, I have made a swirly mug, but it's never become
it's not become a thing.
It's not become.
I do like 1 or 2 per upload.
Yeah. It hasn't become a consistent part of my practice.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's why I think it's important to celebrate all the different stages, because otherwise we're just saying like, oh, like you're on that phase of your pottery. Oh, you have so far to go. That's fair. I don't think that's the thing. That's
not the vibe.
That's not the vibe we should be projecting.
No, I 100% agree with you. But I 80% agree with you.
Okay, yeah, because I'm like, you kind of shit on.
Well, I 80% agree with you, but I am super tired of, and take this with a grain of salt, because I love when you guys tag me in posts on Twitter and Instagram, and you send me pictures, and I often reply with like, I'm super proud of you, and you're doing better.
Yeah.
There's like 5 people who constantly give me pictures of their work. And then I will just text them back hearts or be like, wow, I'm so glad you're doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I did that, and I'm glad you're doing that too, because that's how I got to where I am now.
Yeah.
That being said, I am a little bit tired of the other kid who's like, I did this one thing, and I'm the first to ever do it, and I'm the best, and then I have to be the guy who's like, no, we've done that.
Oh,
for a while.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
I don't want to kill your...
That's different.
You know, like, I don't want to kill your vibe, but like, taking minerals and then grinding them up and then putting them in a glaze to make a different glaze, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we do that. Here's this glaze. We've done that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh. Like, I'm not trying to gatekeep you or anything, kid. I'm just trying to like be realistic with you.
Yeah, no, and I agree that there's a difference between, because I think in general you are very supportive. Like, you wouldn't have the community that you have if you weren't supportive.
I try so hard.
Yeah. But there is a difference.
I try so hard that I make free content for you to learn from online.
Literally. All the time. Yes.
I don't ever want to be called a gatekeeper when I actively show you how to do all the things I do for free. The gates are open.
Yes.
I invite you in.
Yes.
But some people are just mad the gates are there, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that, okay, so a little part of me could push back on that, but that's another conversation. Yeah. So.
The higher tiers I will.
Yeah.
Gatekeep.
Right.
100%.
Okay, we'll talk about this one. Anyway, so let's kind of circle back to, I guess, the overall topic of price gouging versus paying for artist labor. So in general, we've been kind of talking about rarity and skill and like how common a design is and how that. So it's like, so how do you, I guess, take that?
Well, so if we're going to the other end,
yes.
Like if we're going to a place we might meet toward the middle ground, I think there are 2 mindsets. And I'll save the second one for last. One of which is, I don't think that you should pay close to $100 for a cylinder that has very little work done to it with a clear gloss glaze and like a handle on it. Like I purely think it's a hill I'll die on. Regardless of supply and demand, just because people are paying for it doesn't immediately... Like, just because people are wearing FUBU doesn't mean those people are better than you because they can buy FUBU. When you buy FUBU or you wear Gucci, you're just telling me you paid a lot of money for the same clothes that are keeping us not naked. Like, and I don't agree with it. Like, in the same way that I don't think paying for a more expensive car makes you a better person. Or the same way that I don't think having, like, the same item, but of a certain brand means that is worth its asking price is the same. You know what I mean?
Can I push back a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I get the comparison you're making.
Yes.
I think the thing that just came to mind that's the difference there.
Yes.
Is that, and again, this is kind of depending on the situation, but if you're talking about like a big brand name like Gucci or, you know, Salvatore Ferragamo, like you're looking at huge companies, like big businesses, right? If you're talking about one ceramic artist who is their entire business selling a mug with a clear glaze on it and a handle for $100,
okay,
that's a different situation.
Okay, so that's a fantastic point, and that leads into my second point.
Carry on.
What is the difference in between artist galleries price gouging for an artist's work because of their name for a singular artist versus like one other singular artist who's trying to do the same thing on Etsy?
I think
the two are the same person, but in contrast.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Yeah. Should I? Okay, so...
Yeah, so reiterate the...
I think paying an artist for their skilled labor is 100% valid. Like, I'm like, yes, that makes sense. It took time, it took skill, it took effort. Like, it took all these things. That piece is rare. It takes a base of knowledge to do these things. That, to me, is like, you put in the work, you get the fruits of your labor. I don't think just because someone has a name on that pot, it should make it way more expensive. I think that to an extent is price gouging. And I think to a certain extent it's equivalent to, you know, the like high-end artist people that we assume like hoard art and then overprice them. You know what I mean?
Like
those art circles that are like, well, it's a Monet, so of course it's 5 times worth what its asking price. I'm gonna keep it until the rarity goes up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think there's something very similar about paying for a name behind a piece and not exactly the skill or the rarity versus just like price gouging because there's a name on the pot. In the same way that you have a t-shirt, but it's 4 times more because it's Gucci. I think they're the same animal, but the only difference is that one's a company and one's a singular artist. And
I think that, first of all, I think that difference is important.
Okay.
Because a huge, like, how do I say? Okay. So I think this comes back to a philosophy of like, in general, supporting a small business, because especially when you look at like big companies, there's a lot of ethical issues that come into play, like with the
100%,
the Jordan shoes that you were talking about earlier.
I hate Jay's I'm sorry for saying that, but yeah.
So I think that difference is not a small one, and it's really important to take into account that even though it's a similar situation, the fact that it's a single person is different. Like that makes a difference. The second thing is, like, I hear what you're saying about the ridiculousness of like name recognition. Yeah. At the same time, I'm kind of like, you know what? That's the world we're in right now. Let me. You're interrupting me.
I'm sorry.
No. It's okay. We're both very like invested.
We're both invested. Yeah.
Yes. So okay. So the other thing is that that's the world we're in, and I think especially when you're talking about a small business or a small like for me, like part of the reason now that I like really want one of Tim C's cups, like not that I didn't want one of his cups before, but like, so the other reason that I want to is because like I've met him. I feel like, you know, we have that like person to person connection, and that is a very valid part of the buying experience. Like part of the reason that like people buy my work or buy your work is not just because of, like, I think particularly for you, like the reason that people, or I'm assuming part of the reason that people want to buy your work is not only because they like your cup, but because of everything else that you do that is associated with the Earth Nation Ceramics brand.
That's fair, yeah.
So that when you say name recognition, that's not just this high-minded, superfluous social condition that we exist in. It's our brand, and it's all the other things that go into what we make beyond just the individual cup that shows up in our venue of selling.
I do think there's a tiny bit of non-ethical practice that, like, if I was like, I'm Donte, charge more for it, I think that would be a bit wrong of me. I really do.
Yeah, okay, I can.
And I'm using that to compare to FUBU and Gucci is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like, oh, it's Gucci? 3 times more. Like, I don't think that's okay.
But I think though, okay, this is hard because this is one of those things where you can't verify unless
it's morality based. Like
it's one of the things you can't verify unless you're in somebody else's head.
Yeah.
But I think if you're coming from a perspective of, okay, my brand is growing, my business is growing, therefore I believe I can charge more, I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's more about the intention or the attitude.
Right. But the thing is,
you gotta be somebody's head.
We can't know that as consumers or as like anybody. We don't know what's going on in someone's head.
But I will say, as a hard stance, I'm dying on this hill, Lindsay. I refuse to pay near $100 for a cup with a one glaze on it. Like, I'm not like, if there was, remember that social experiment they did on Twitter where somebody like forged, they weren't Gucci, what were they? It was like FUBU or Gucci.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, but like it's just a shirt with 4 letters on it in red.
Right.
And it was like $300 for the shirt.
Okay.
And hype beasts, people who overvalue, like items.
Hype beasts, I love that.
Hype beasts. People are like, I got the new this or that, and they wear it for a day until the next thing comes out, and they're hella expensive. We're all about it. I do not agree with the social perception, or as you said, the social conditioning, that things are more valuable because they are attached to a name. I purely think, like 90% of me actually, thinks that it should be valued on a different basis. Like, I don't think just because my name is on a mug, it should make it more expensive. I think you should pay for my work, not my name.
I think it's both.
If I made a cylinder and I charge you almost $100 for it on Etsy, you should slap me.
I disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah. Damn. Because in my mind, if I were to make like a concluding argument, the reason that I think it would be fine if you charged $100 for a cylinder with a handle in a clear glaze, and that's like if you built like kind of, I think like if you built up to that point. Yeah, because I think people would be like, what? I think people would be kind of confused if you just did that.
Absolutely.
But if you built up to that point, the reason that I think that is doable is because value is a weird thing. It's socially constructed.
I hate it so much.
And I think the value of something is not just the rarity, is not just the time, it's not just the skill and the effort. I think like the brand is a significant part of that. And that's not like, and again, like, I think how do I say? Like, ultimately, you can still choose to, like, not buy a Gucci whatever. You can ultimately choose not to buy, like, these prices that are expensive because of the kind of, like, the brand associated with them. But I don't think there's, and especially if it's a small business person, I think it's okay to take into account your brand, your standing, your social recognizability into the price of your work. I
think at the end of the road it comes to not perception but intention. Like if you were like, I can charge more because people know about me, then I'm like, well, I think that's less valid than it is to say my business is growing and I'm selling out. And like Pottery Danielle on TikTok, she sells out like my mom complains to me like, go get Pottery Danielle's mug for me. Do some pottery magic, please. Oh my God. And then I'm like, I can't. She's like, it sells out in 5 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, I get why she can charge more. But I think if she was in her room, like, I'm going to charge $200 for this mug because I'm Danielle. They're going to pay no matter what. I'd be like, oh, come on, man. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain air of arrogance about it that I don't agree with, and I think a lot of people and companies have that bravado.
Right, but you don't, and that's
I don't have it,
and that's why I think you can charge more for your work.
You gotta, people on Twitter, let me know. People on Twitter, let me know if I can charge you more.
And send this dude, like.
Don't go on Facebook. I'm done with Facebook.
All right, go on Instagram.
Twitter.
Tell us in the comments. Just, honestly, let us know. Yeah, let us know what you think about this, because it's a really complicated issue, and I feel like we've gone from the nitty-gritty to the very, like...
We're abstract now.
Abstract, yeah. So let us know what your thoughts are about pricing, whether you're a consumer, you buy the mugs, whether you make, whether you're an artist or a maker yourself, like... Let us know what you think about this, because it is, it's kind of it's an interesting and complicated topic, and I feel like I've kind of leaned more into the more like market friendly. Perspective.
More. I need to get more market friendly.
I think we can like in the things that I've discussed with you.
Yes.
I do agree with a lot of what you're saying in terms of sentiment, but I've put forth the conviction of things that I have heard from the outside and like pushing. I'm because my biggest thing, especially with pricing, is pushing against all of the other bullshit that we get. God, I need to stop cursing. It's pushing against all the other stuff that we hear as artists. That bring our prices down, like just the inherent, like, you know, the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, the general lack of value of arts in our society.
We're still human.
Yeah. Like if you were to tell someone in your Uber driver, oh, I'm a tech person in the Bay Area versus I'm an artist, like who's gonna get the more like who has more social standing just initially in
their immediate thought is like my tip's gonna be low now. Like
exactly. Yeah. So my thing with pricing is I'm always trying to overcompensate for that, even though I still struggle with it, to be honest. Like, again, like I recognize that I need to raise my prices, but I'm honestly probably not going to do it until the end of the year.
I think for me, after Nsika, look, in Destiny, I'm an off-meta player, which means I will use weapons that other people are not using.
Right.
Just so that when I beat you with those weapons, you can't be like, of course you're using that weapon. It's cheap. Like, it's easy to use. It's cheap. It's ticky-tacky. Everybody's doing it. And I'll use weapons that I'll use a weapon from like 5 years ago. So people will be like, I can't believe you beat me with that weapon. So that way, if you try to start arguing me, I'd be like, I beat you with off-meta. Like, you can't, I beat you with the stuff that's not as popular.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think in that same vein, whenever I see something that's just like overdone, I'm like, oh Christ.
Yeah.
I'm more mad at the social perception of society valuing things that are not valued based on like work or skill or like rarity. And I think I'm fairly frustrated with society valuing things based off of pure perception. Like, I put 3 lead redders, lead redders. Them redders. I put 3 red letters on a shirt, and now it's gone up 3 times in price. I can't, and then there's people who pay for it, and that makes me more frustrated. Cause, like, you're aware. Like, you know you're playing into the, like, I don't understand how we can complain that, like, inflation is slowly killing us as a market while simultaneously paying for things that are not as valuable as the lower version of it. When realistically, the difference is like 3 letters.
Oh, okay, but the whole inflation thing, like that's a different.
I know
that's a separate thing.
I'm just waiting for some potter to be like, well, I have to charge because inflation. I have to charge more prices. And
well, I mean,
I'm waiting for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, simultaneously being like, I put a dot of rent on it. You know those
I know exactly what you're doing. I totally know what you're about to say. Carry on.
Well, okay, I'll change it. But like, you ever go to a museum and you see a big, like, huge painting, but it's just one color, and it's like $250,000, and your immediate thought is like, dude, that's price gouging. There's a name on it. The name behind this thing with one color on it.
Yeah.
Is.
I mean.
How is that? Like, how is that ethical or legal whatsoever?
I mean.
How is that okay?
Okay, so this is like, okay, because again, I do feel like we should wrap up relatively soon, because that's kind of a big thing. I may end up cutting this part out.
You're good.
Just because it's the intro to another whole other topic.
Yeah.
But like, I think the thing with like, there's a few different things with those big paintings, or with those big, like that type of like work that you're thinking about. First of all, like, is that name, like when I'm talking about like, you know, those building blocks, like the bubble technique being like the next step to like this. Sometimes those paintings are that step.
That's fair.
Like those kind of things had never been done before.
Beginner work, maybe? I don't know.
Not so much that it's beginner work, but it's kind of like those artists were maybe doing something that nobody else had done before because they were exploring that movement, right?
Yeah.
It seems boring to us now because we grew up in an environment where that was common.
Yeah.
But on top of that, like, yeah, the other half is that, yeah, it's kind of just amorphous social value given because that name has importance, because somebody somewhere whose opinion mattered said that it should be worth a lot of money.
That kills me so hard.
No, it's honestly, it's kind of insane. I kind of just don't really think about it that much anymore, because I think where that's important to keep in mind is in valuing your own work.
Yeah.
Because I think to some degree, by recognizing that, like, okay.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, so the best comparison I can think of is, like, I remember being at UC Santa Cruz, and I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but, like, I remember being at UC Santa Cruz, and, like, my style of artwork, like, not really being, like, I didn't get a lot of positive feedback about the kind of work that I wanted to make because people were like, oh, it's just fantasy art or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But then I remember going to a convention in Southern California after I graduated, showing my sculptures and people being like, whoa,
yes,
that's really cool. So it's kind of about, I think it's important to recognize that value is an amorphous, somewhat arbitrarily ascribed thing.
It's a social construct.
Right, it's a social construct.
It's a social construct.
Yeah, but where I think that's important is to recognize that, like, just because your artwork may not be valued in a certain setting doesn't mean that it's not going to be valued in another, and doesn't mean that it's inherently valuable in and of itself. Personally, just because you made it, you know, you're giving it value. So yeah. So it's like, so I want to encourage people. I want that to be an encouragement to people because Absolutely. Just because. Yeah, because it's like also recognizing that it's all kind of bullshit, right? Like it's all just kind of, you know.
It's all kind of bullshit. I think my frustration lies in the fact that there seems to be this ideal of a higher tier of capital A art world that does specifically what I'm complaining about right now. It specifically takes pieces and price gouges people and overcharges them because of the name on them, regardless of the skill, regardless of the rarity, regardless of the actual time that went into it. And like that kills me because those are essentially the top, and I use this word lightly, but it's literal this time, the top gatekeepers of the art world. Like, they literally keep low-tier functional artists such as Lindsey and I out because we don't play this game of overvaluing art in order to make them money. Like, they're just trading off art stuff. Like, it's weird. They keep the art, they wait for it to go up in price, the artist dies, the name becomes more valuable, they charge like 10 times more the price. They go to art, and like, it's...
Yeah,
for me, it's heavily unethical, and for me to go even on the smallest scale of that and do something like, well, my name's Donte, so I can charge more, is like maybe a modicum of that. And I do agree that it's probably a big business type thing that's with inner circles of the art world and versus like a small artist, but like, you know, like one is the step to the other to me, and I don't like it.
I think that's a little bit of a slippery slope argument.
It is a slippery. It is a yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it is a fallacy.
I hear what you're saying, and I do agree that like there's that structure, and that's actually that reminds me, like there's a documentary I've been meaning to watch that another art friend of mine recommended called The Price of Everything, and it's about that dynamic that you're talking about of the way that like the art world selling works and how it like ultimately screws over a lot of artists.
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying in terms of like
keeping us down.
That structure, that structure being harmful to artists.
Yeah.
But I do also think that like your feeling of, oh, if I do this, then that means I'm like this. I think that's a little bit of a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope, and in all logic, slippery slope fallacies are illogical. And I can't deny that. Like, I am wrong. I am wrong. I have to say that. Like, I have to have intellectual consistency, otherwise all ethics are lost. Like, I have to fully admit that is a slippery slope argument, and that is inherently massively fallible, right?
Fallacious, you might say.
Well, there's this TikTok where it's like Alien and this guy are talking, and they're like, has your research been done on planet Earth? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, what do they use for money? He goes, it's crazy. They work for each other, but there's clearly like a higher council of them that don't work at all, but they have the majority of the resources. And he's like, isn't that just slavery? He goes, no, yeah, but like they work for little pieces of paper. Instead, he goes, it's just adding a middleman. He goes, that's the crazy thing is they used to actually have slavery, and the system is so close to slavery that they printed pictures of the slave owners on the paper they work for.
Oh my God.
And he's like, are you serious? And he's like, yes. And they base them based on like value of who made the most money during their life.
Oh my God.
But they all own slaves.